Are
But the
they still
Australian
in
government's
power?
position well, they control Rafah. They have at least 4 brigades that IDF believes in Rafah. They control hostages in Rafah. If Israel withdrew now, then they could use that position to regain control of the rest of Gaza, as they have done previously when the IDF withdrew in 2005 unilaterally from Gaza. And the Australian government's position, on the one hand, is Hamas should have no future role in governing Gaza, but on the other hand, there should be an immediate ceasefire. Well, an immediate ceasefire without Hamas giving up their arms and without the hostages being returned would see Hamas having an ongoing role in Gaza. And so the Foreign Minister who's articulated this has to explain what is the strategy for removing Hamas from power if the IDF is to stop all operations in Gaza? How will that possibly be the case? Do we think they'll just walk away once the IDF departs? I'm sceptical that would happen.
Yeah, Australia once again is following the lead in many ways of the US and the UK. Would you prefer the Australian government and the Foreign Minister not be in lockstep with those two countries?
Well, I don't think we have been in lockstep. We've been far out ahead of them in some respects in abandoning Israel and walking away from the support we offered them on the 8th of October and onwards. It was, of course, the Australian government that voted for a unilateral ceasefire motion in the General Assembly at the United Nations when the United States and our allies like the United Kingdom did not do so, and confusingly put out a statement saying, although they voted for a unilateral ceasefire, actually what they meant was a sustainable ceasefire once the hostages were released and Hamas gave up their arms. They can't have it both ways. They have to decide what sort of ceasefire they're in favour of and what circumstances Hamas should be allowed to continue to rule Gaza. They haven't given those answers, and I think it's very easy from the cheap seats 12,000 kilometres away to give this advice to Israel. But how do they think Hamas should be removed, and what do they think the consequences would be if Hamas is not removed?
Yeah, but it's the US and the UK that have been saying just in recent days that their support is not unconditional. We haven't done that, have we?
Well, Australia should be concerned, and we are all concerned about the civilian death toll in Gaza. It is shockingly high and higher than anyone wants to see, including Israel. I was there only a month ago. I saw that and heard that firsthand myself. But that civilian death toll is a result of Hamas and the way they've decided to conduct this war. It's a result of their attack on the 7th of October, and it's a result of the fact that they burrowed themselves in civilian areas, building a network of tunnels underneath schools and hospitals and mosques, and even under the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. I mean, it is very difficult to conduct a military operation in those built-up civilian areas to remove a terrorist organisation without there also being civilian casualties, and tragically that is what we've seen.
I think the hardest thing, James, is how you explain the deaths of 13,000 children. I'm not saying I have the answers, but I think that's what's really hard to get your head around, right?
It is. It's utterly tragic deaths on a shocking scale.
Yeah.
And many of the people who have died in Gaza are completely innocent. They are themselves also victims of Hamas. They are effectively being held hostage by Hamas, just like the Israelis are being held hostage.
Yeah.
Hamas deliberately puts them in harm's way and deliberately seeks a high civilian death toll to use as a weapon in the public relations war against Israel internationally, with some success. It is hurting Israel, we know that. But I'm not going to be here and be an armchair military operations expert and tell Israel there is some better way to do this. There are a lot of those experts on Twitter, some of them, even in the Albanese cabinet, who think they could do better. But without being there on the ground, without having that military experience, I'm a bit more reluctant to provide that free advice.